Coast AM with Art Bell from the Kingdom of Nye.
It is indeed my guest, Dr. Jonathan Reed, Robert Race, and Dr. Harold Strong, a microbiologist. And once again, so that you know, reading from what was sent to me, Dr. Chacon is a degreed microbiologist, graduating with honors from Catholic University of Puerto Rico with a DS Master's Program certificate in the field of microbiology, biomedical research in cell immunology, biochemistry, and zoology, currently studying and residing here in the U.S. And I'm not going to run my commercial break now. We're going to go directly back to our guest. And Doctor, if you would continue, please, the tissue sample you said was not, had similarities to, but was in fact not human.
Not human. Okay, it was about 3 millimeters in thickness, very, very fibrous consistency, and the surface was kind of light grayish brown.
Really?
Extremely transparent, much more transparent than human skin, much more.
Okay.
There was no signs of any hair or hair follicles within the surface of the cell structure.
Right.
Absolutely no signs of it. We found some subcutaneous tissue, that's the one that is under the surface, and that one has some sebaceous-like glands. Those are the glands that produce usually fat, but half as many as we found in the human skin.
Half as many.
Half as many.
All right. Are any of these findings consistent with any other living mammals on Earth that you know? No?
No. Probably the one that could be most related, probably in some ways, not completely, could be the reptile.
Reptilian.
But not completely.
But enough difference, so it definitely was not earthly reptilian.
No, it's not an earthly reptile.
So you're telling me this is tissue from a creature from other than Earth?
From, I don't know, because this is a tissue sample from nothing that we have any data collected on Earth.
All right. You also received a blood sample, or what we are calling blood.
What we used to call, yeah, exactly, blood. Besides that skin tissue sample, we have another muscle sample too.
A muscle sample?
It was, attached to it. The muscle, it's connected to this layer of skin, which resembles, this muscle resembles what is called the occipital frontalis muscle. In humans, it's called tissue. It resembles, but it was kind of yellowish pink in color. In humans, it's usually red. This one didn't have that red color. In closer examination, there was another smaller, fine muscle that was intersecting this occipital muscle, resembling what is called the temporal fascia muscle. In the human, the two are connected, and it was connected by tendinous and fatty fibrous tissue. That was similar to human. Completely.
Well, I just want to be very clear for the audience that what we are describing here, the tissue, even the muscle sample, is close to in some respects, but different enough to be called absolutely non-human.
Oh yeah, completely.
Completely. All right.
Human.
All right. Now, on to the blood, or what we call the blood.
Okay, there's a sample that we call, at that time we call it the blood. This was really interesting. The sample was dried. When you put it to the freezing, you put it into contact with really low temperatures. Usually liquid tissue, because blood is considered a liquid tissue.
Right.
They get really dry, and we have to rehydrate that tissue again. We rehydrate the tissue with saline solution, and at that time we're gonna be able to study the cells and if they're different. The general findings when we tested it reveal a level of oxygen and carbon dioxide and nitrogen-based gases, but with a slight difference. In this case, there was a high copper sulfate traces.
Copper sulfate?
Yeah, copper sulfate, really high traces of that.
Copper sulfate?
Yeah. The copper sulfate traces, there were white and red-black corpuscles, what are called corpuscles, with elongated nucleus.
God. I want to stop you for just a second and remind my audience that in a recent significant interview we did on animal mutilations, they found missing from the cows what? Copper. The copper content, I think in the liver, if I'm remembering correctly, was almost entirely missing. And it just keyed when you said that to me. Fascinating. So, anyway, continue, please.
Okay, when we keep sampling and testing it, we look for chromosomes because we're actually working with red blood cells.
Yes.
And we're looking for more specific proofs and findings. And when we did the chromosome study, it revealed that the red blood cells, or what we could be resembling red blood cells, they have a chromosome count of 46, exactly as human.
Okay.
This is very human. We have 46 chromosomes too. But what is really, really, really astonishing is that 9 of those 46 chromosomes are not human.
9 are not human?
9 are not human, but they're only found in dolphins and some aquatic sea tortoises.
But these 9 chromosomes are found in dolphins and some aquatic sea tortoises?
Yes. This is the only data that we have that resemble this type of chromosome that we found in his blood.
Is there any way that you can imagine that any creature that we know of could carry such a chromosome structure?
No, that is unique. We checked catalogs in many universities, and we went through a lot of data and trying to find some relationship between these scientific findings with any animal that we know, that science actually knows in our planet, and we couldn't find any way to fit it.
Welcome back to the Storyist. On October 15th, 1996, Dr. Jonathan Reed claims that his dog went missing. Reed then went out into the woods near his home to see if he could find the dog. When he went into the woods, he found a floating UFO in the shape of a spike. Reed then went back inside to get his video camera and began filming the incident. He then saw the alien grab his dog by both jaws, literally snapping them apart. As a result, the dog turned to white ash instantly, but this was never recorded on film. In retaliation, Reed then took a tree branch and threw it at the alien, fatally injuring it. Reed then brought the alien inside and tried to take a nap, but found himself unable to due to the tension of the incident. Reed decided to do an autopsy of the alien and filmed the alleged examination. Later he claimed mysterious white vans arrived at his home and took the alien and most of his evidence. The footage contained in this video are very rare, and I hope you watch it to the end. I invite all of you to subscribe for more historical aerial phenomena documentaries.
Come on, work. Stop. Come on, work. Come on.
Doctor, when did you hear that scream?
Well, after a few hours had gone by and I had called Gary back, and he had calmed me down from crawling practically around the ceiling, we both went out to look again. And I figured, we went out and looked. We did the same thing. I opened the freezer so that I could know that I was not imagining this. And the same thing happened. And when the freezer was opened, this thing let out a scream like I have never heard before. It literally, the force of the sound
made you feel like something was pushing against your chest?
The air around it as it screams actually bubbles and moves.
It felt like the air was moving.
God.
And at that time, it was just, open and closed. And later on, I felt like I had to try to document this.
Of course.
So I took my camera and I took the recorder and I turned it on and I again opened the freezer, and that's when I recorded this sound.
Would you play the sound for us once again, please?
Yes, I will. Hold on.
Okay. Here it comes. Oh, my God, that's awful. Oh, my God, that's awful. How did you stay dry?
I didn't.
The alien in his footage is remarkable by itself, but this story is only quite literally barely getting started. He also found a device near the alien's body the day of this incident took place when packing it in the thermal blanket. He called it the Link device. This artifact has been presented to the Mexican government and was displayed on a Mexican talk show. The footage you're about to watch is extremely rare and has been dubbed as it was originally in Spanish. The footage after this presentation is not like any other I myself have seen before.
You know that very special protection has been needed, which I want to thank really the Attorney General's office, because they have supported us in all this in a very discreet, very cordial, very kind way, because this belongs to humanity.
Let's turn it around. I wouldn't even want to touch it, take it out. We remove the briefcase.
As you can see, it's in a special container. This container is designed to protect this type of artifact. This is an airtight container to protect it from environmental conditions and prevent certain fungi from accumulating on the bracelet. Because that is what usually happens in any other type of environment.
I imagine it has an alarm. Yes.
Yes, they have it. This has a special control. So if, for example, someone tries to open it, the alarm will go off. Or, for example, if the container breaks, the alarm will also be activated.
This case was made especially for this. It has nitrogen inside.
Doctor, when you hit this being, Freddy, in that contact, in that fight you saw with your dog, it tells us in the story that it fell with a great blow and that its brain mass was even exposed. Was this bracelet on, or where was it at the moment this being fell?
Honestly, Tate, at that moment, I don't remember if he was wearing it on his wrist, or when Susie was grabbing his arm, or if Susie tore it off. Once I hit him, and he fell to the ground, I found it, but then it was in some bushes, 10 feet from where the body was. I guess it fell off during the struggle with my dog or when I hit him.
Doctor, did you see this? And I want to imagine that maybe it could have been a part of the ship, because we didn't touch on that topic. A kind of ship was seen, the obelisk. The obelisk, as they call it. But when you put it in the bag, took it along with Freddy to your house and then opened this thermal bag. Did you know it was for the arm, or where did you try it first? How did you realize it had to go on some part of the arm? I don't know. Well, I don't have all those answers. The only thing I know, the thing is, when Gary and I analyzed Freddy's body before he revived, I put it on his arm. And when I put it on his arm, it closed automatically. It closed on his arm and it turned black, just like the suit Freddy put on you. And when I put it on, it closed on my arm and freezes, as if it were glass frozen by ice. In my case, it did not turn black. I believe it is very important for everyone to understand that there is a legacy in this artifact, and that legacy, which is positive because we are sharing it with the Mexicans, is also a goal for us.
But in reality, it is bathed in blood, because very good people have suffered and died for this. So hear the world, you can now see this wonderful object. This object that does not belong to us, but belongs to something which is much more intelligent than us. This is a very big responsibility we have in our hands, not only for Jaime Maussan or for Dr. Reed or for my colleagues, but it's a responsibility for the whole world. And we have to face it. And for me, it is very difficult to put it in terms, let's say. I am very happy to be here. I have witnessed what happened to Gary, what happened to him, and when died. At that point, Gary had to be taken to a special place, which I will tell you. He went with special friends, and I saw how this bracelet was used. And I saw how Jonathan made contact with these beings, and I saw and was present when he used it. But I would like to thank all the audience and all Mexicans for supporting us and for being our friends. This is not the end.
It's just the beginning. Yeah, I mean, this research will continue. If tonight Dr. Jonathan has decided not to use it because maybe it's not the right time, he has told me that when this happens, when we have the evidence, the video, or can do the live presentation, or you can be there. It will be done here, it will be done in Mexico. He has decided
with you
that this is in this country because of kindness, for gratitude, because he only wanted to be heard. No one listened to him. I had the honor, I had the opportunity to approach him and listen to the story and gradually confirm it. For me, Adal, it is extremely important. After 17 years of being involved in this investigation, finally, I can bring the evidence, and I can bring the result of so many years of work. And therefore to say or think that I have fulfilled what I set out to do 10 years ago, not only because of the research in Mexico and about the volcanoes and all the cases you have seen, but because I have managed to bring to my country the most important that no one else has accomplished for any other place in the world. And this is for me a source of deep pride that I also share with you.
Thank you, Jaime. Before ending this segment, I have two more questions. I can see some small needles. And in the background, as if they were emeralds or some kind of precious stone. What is this? I don't know if it's visible, but there are some needles here inside. What was happening then? When you saw that Dr. Jonathan Reed put this on in the story that you are telling us, which I repeat, another role is the medium. They are telling their experience. You will decide at home where will the conversation, the talk tonight lead. If you will remain a skeptic, or if as a result of this you will become interested in the UFO phenomenon,
It's okay to be skeptical.
This case is being presented.
What we want here is not to convince anyone. It's not about coming and if you don't want to believe, don't. Just open your mind, learn about this case. I must tell you that I will be with Dr. Jonathan Reed this Sunday at the Metropolitan Theater. And afterwards, I will bring all this information to all of Mexico, Guadalajara, Monterrey. Again, I will be in Tijuana and other places, so that everyone can convince themselves. Well, or if they are not convinced, at least they have the elements and decide for themselves. Don't let others tell you, right? Because suddenly they attack me so baselessly, saying, everything Marsan says is a lie. Well, if I take the time and trouble to research, to go and check and present things, then at least they should do it in the same way. I am also willing to learn, and if someone proves that what we are presenting is not true, then I am also willing to accept it, and I have the enormous commitment, Adele, that if this is not truth, I will be the first to come to you and say, I found that the case was not true, even if this costs me my credibility, even if it's bad for me. I mean, we have to be extraordinarily honest about this. There's no need to go further. And that's why I'm telling you this is just beginning. It didn't end here tonight. And here on this program, you in Mexico will witness many things. He has kept many...
I leave all of you with one more clip. Once again, Dr. Reed was on another Mexican talk show, but this time it's to demonstrate the link device. I like you have no idea if what you're about to see is real, but taking into account the initial analysis from Art Bell speaking to Dr. Chacon on the aliens' tissue, blood, and muscle samples provided by Dr. Reed, along with the fact the talk show he's on now is live with an actual audience, represents an abundance of consistency. Especially when we also factor in he would have had to trick all the Mexican officials in the previous talk show as well. Dr. Reed's story will continue as there's more to be told. I hope to see you again.
I appreciate the opportunity to come on your program, and your invitation has given me and the people an opportunity to understand better the circumstances relating to my encounters and what has happened during my life. In 2001, I was invited by Jaime Maussan to come to Mexico and tell my story to the people of Mexico, and consequently to the world. Between the people of Mexico, Jaime Maussan, and Art Bell, I was able to tell my story to millions and millions of people who have been supportive over the years and have given me the strength to continue. Back then, I had hoped to be able to demonstrate the link bracelet or artifact in Mexico, but consequently, due to security issues, it was impossible at the time. And now that we live in a time of war and terrorism around the world, it's impossible to transport the link device anywhere across anyone's borders. So, as you have invited me here, I will take this opportunity to dedicate the possibility of using the artifact in public on live television in your live program today. And hopefully we can see if it will in fact function, because sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's a matter of them not allowing it to happen. It's a two-phase operation. It's not just up to me. It's up to them. They are the owners. They are the ones that decide if in fact it is going to function. I'd just like to say thank you to all of the people of Mexico and to all of the people all around the world who have done so much to help me personally, and all of the other people who have had contact around the world. There are millions and millions of people who have supported me, and thousands of other people who have had contact like myself that continues to this very day. Act, or bracelet, as many people refer to it, is something that I found in the forest next to the body when I found the Extraterrestrial 13 years ago. It's a small silver device that is worn on the wrist and is a factor of communication and teleportation between the wearer and his superiors. I have learned that I have been given the responsibility and an opportunity to care for this device. It is something that is very sacred, and it is one of several that has been held in safekeeping around the world for over 60 years. I have talked with many of the other people who have found these devices, and now we know and are learning what the responsibility and what some of the functions are of these devices. Truly, truly, a technology that is so far advanced from anything that humans have yet to even scratch the surface of. This is what so many people have tried to say doesn't exist, or simply is a figment of someone's imagination. It has symbols across the front of it. This is what I found in the forest in 1996 when I first encountered the creature, or the alien. I believe that it's some kind of bioelectric interface between the wearer of this device and the owners of it, that they actually activate it. It has 3 needles on the inside that actually penetrate your arm, the wearer of this, that I think creates a interface, biological interface, with the device and or the beings who use it. So my impression of it is that it's designed to keep control and communication between the extraterrestrial and their superiors. I believe it fits on your arm, the wearer's arm, like this. If you push down, the needles penetrate your skin, tissue, and into the nerves of your arm. There is some pain to it, but it quickly goes away. It becomes kind of a cold, almost a frozen type feeling. Very quickly that pain subsides, but if it functions, which sometimes it doesn't, it starts a throbbing inside your chest, literally a pulsation inside your chest that starts from the center and emanates to your extremities and becomes harder and harder. And then when that happens, then it starts to be activated by there. Now I can feel it. I can feel it in my chest. It's painful, but if I hold my chest, it has a tendency to be less painful. And then they make the decision whether
down there is Area 51. If you can see those lights down there, it's been going on for the last couple of days. You see lights like going up and down and moving all around. Like right now, you see that one right there? Look, it's going up. It's starting to go up. It's been there for like the last 20 minutes or so. Now it's going up. And this has been going on for the last couple of days. And look, you can see it's going up and up. And I don't know what it is, but this is like some creepy shit. Now I know that what goes on down here at Area 51. We've been like camped out here for a while, and look, it's moving. It's moving. It's going in the other direction. Now you see, this is the kind of stuff that. Oh, did you see that?
I'm glad you've returned to the Storyist. Dr. Jonathan Reed's story from October of 1996 is nothing short of fascinating, and includes the typical internet crowd of both believers and naysayers. There's so many questions we all have with cases that are similar, but many of you may not know that Dr. Reed made a documentary covering the incident, and I believe we need to go down the rabbit hole on this to really digest this tale. This is the beginning of the story, in his own words.
Does it ever cross your mind when you come up here that a lot of people don't even know, like people that come through here don't even know what happened up here?
I hope they don't know, actually. You know, because I've never wanted anybody to go and desecrate the site.
Oh, right.
But I've been up here. There's a restaurant up at the top of the pass. I sat there, was having coffee one day, and two people came by and said, "Aren't you that guy? Aren't you that doctor?" And so people do know. I mean, I know that people know. After we did Otro Rollo, that show came out. When it first came out, we couldn't basically go anywhere without getting recognized. On the day I was up here, I drove from here down about a mile.
Okay.
And parked. There's a big cutout like this in the road.
Right.
And I was able to just pull off and park, and that was the normal place that I was go.
Right.
You know, and park, get the dog out, and start walking. And we just started walking down. And we'd been walking for about a good hour. When she took off running and barking. And, you know, and I didn't think much of that because that happened all the time. That was pretty normal. You know, chasing squirrels and raccoons and whatever, but it was different that day. It was definitely different. And it's hard to be here. It's hard. It's emotional. Not only because of Susie, but just knowing that it changed my whole life that day. Everything is different. This is exactly where I had to drive back from. You know, when I had the body in the back of the Jeep and, you know, I had to drive home. And I drove along here and then I turned off at the first exit up here to go to the ranger station where I knew there was a ranger station. But, you know, there was nobody there. So I just got back in, you know, sick as I was, and drove home as fast as I could. Stopping along the way to throw up.
think you could roll the window up? Suppress some of the noise. How far from the ranger station?
We're about 10 miles from the ranger station. But it was the first place I knew where there might be somebody. It was about, I think it was about 5:30 or so, 5:45 at that time. And in October, it starts to get, that's starting to get dark. During the winter, it gets dark pretty early. That's what I was worried about. I was worried about being caught out in the middle of nowhere, being as sick as I was, and not being able to get back to my Jeep. So, fear led me out of there just as much as fear kept me there. It's very surreal to come back up here and be in this place. This place that, one day my life was one way and the next day it was all upside down. And everything changed. I mean, everything literally changed overnight. Within days I had no job, I had no credibility, I had lost friends and family. My house had been ransacked. For what? Because I found something unique. It shouldn't happen. People shouldn't be put through this kind of trauma.
We got to talk more about some of the stories that you come across with people going through similar things,
Oh, hey, thousands of people all over the world have had contact. Some a lot more traumatic than mine. It's just that they were smart enough not to come forward. In a lot of ways, I wish I had remained silent. Because maybe my life would have been much better off. I'm glad that I have the knowledge that I have now, that I know that this exists, and that I can put some kind of understanding to a lot of people's misunderstanding of what it's really about. But people need to open their minds. They need to be more receptive to what the importance of this is and why it's going on, and that we're not alone, and we haven't been for a long time. We're part of them. We're part of the circle of life. We're just lower down on the food chain, a lot less intelligent. Maybe we don't have a right to have the full menu of knowledge that they do. Maybe we haven't earned that right yet in evolution. I mean, there's a lot of speculations to why we only know so little. But more and more people are gaining information all around the world, and we're compiling that together. We're trying to create a database of ideas, speculation, and language, what we've been told as contactees. And my hope is that we continue to do that and support the people who have had contact. They are the ones who are the true evidence that this is going on. I don't care whether somebody's got photographs or an artifact or a body. If you've seen and had physical contact, you know that it's real. You know that it has changed your whole paradigm of life, and that nothing will be the same again. It's incredible. And it's very disturbing at the same time. It's not something that I take lightly at all. It's taken me, 13 years to even be able to talk about it openly like this. But I'm still paranoid, and I'm still afraid of many things. But I think I'm angry at the same time. I'm angry at humanity for not embracing people who have come forward, who have tried to say, look, we need to wake up to this reality. But instead, we shun them away. We call them, crazy. or insane, and we try to make them out to be lunatics. They are the evidence. They are the living, breathing evidence that this is not just a phenomena, but a reality. And I think in 1996, when this happened to me the first time, I was asleep like so many other people. I was not aware or even conscious that this could be a reality. And now, in May of 2009, not only do I know it's a reality, but I know that it's a permanent fixture in all of our psyche. I mean, we are being told and shown that this is a evolutionary time in our Earth, and we need to wake up to that reality. We need to embrace that. I was told information back in 1996, 1997, that things were going to be changing, that there was going to be huge changes in the reality of mankind. And even today, even 13, 14 years later, those things are coming to pass. They're a reality, not a fantasy. I wrote about those things in the book that was published in 1999. How could I have known that? How could I have imagined the reality of 9/11? How could I have imagined the reality that our political system would be corrupt, that there would be a world economic crash? How could I have known that unless I was shown this information? Well, I was shown. I was told. And I didn't want to believe it at the time. I didn't want to believe that it was true, because it's disturbing. But I know that I can't just throw away what I now know is true. I need to talk about it. And I've decided to, because I have no other choice, to try to help other people like me that have come through this and don't know how to deal with it. Because there are thousands of us all over the world who've had contact, who feel isolated, who feel alone, and we don't know how to deal with it on our own. But literally, because of the internet, we've been able to learn to come together as a global family, to support each other, and to find ways to comfort each other and learn from all of our experiences. Hey, we don't have all the answers. I certainly don't have all the answers, but we're learning more every single day. Since my first encounter, I may have had over 100 more of them, where I've had physical, one-on-one contact, not spiritual contact, not just etherical contact, but physical contact, just like you're sitting next to me now. Other people have seen this creature. Sometimes it's the same, sometimes it comes with other ones with him. But as many as 30 and 40 people have witnessed some of these encounters. So it's not an isolated incident. You know, it's not something I'm making up. It's not a hoax that somebody's creating. We all around the world are not having the same delusion or illusion. We're not under some kind of hypnotic trance, nor is this an occult in any way. I'm not a prophet, I'm not a guru, I don't profess to be, but I will tell you what happened to me. And if you can learn from it, wonderful. If you don't want to believe me, I got no problem. Walk away. Go find something else to spend your time with. Because I don't have any time to waste the rest of my life. I know there are things that are important to talk about, and this is one of those issues. This is a reality, and it's true. It's my truth. You know, some people talk about the fact that we're selling a book or a DVD concerning the case. Well, those books were written and the DVDs were made because of requests to explain the story. It costs money to produce that stuff. It costs money to go and talk to people all over the world, airplane tickets, lodging, transportation. All that costs a great deal of money. So when people say, well, why aren't you just giving this information away? The first thing as I said is, well, I tried to do that in the beginning. I gave it to every media outlet I could and was basically refused or told that they couldn't handle it. They couldn't deal with this reality. They couldn't air it for one reason or another. And so then we wrote a book. So then we recorded a video and made DVDs because millions of people requested them. So in answer to people saying, well, why don't you just give it away? Well, hey, you give me the money to produce all these products, and I'll be happy to just give them away. I give away thousands of books and DVDs, every year for the last 10 years. That's cost a lot of money to produce them. Anyway, this is the ranger station that I came to right after the encounter and pulled in, and it was empty, just like it's empty now. And, there's nobody in there. I banged on the door and doors were locked, and so I got back in and continued on my way. But basically, this is the North Bend ranger station. So, we'll, mosey on down the road. People always say to me, they say, well, why didn't you call the police? Why didn't you call, all these people? Well, first of all, this is 60 miles out in the middle of nowhere to begin with. And it just wasn't advantageous. I mean, I had to drive about 10 miles just to get to the ranger station to where anybody was. So that was the first opportunity I had to get help. And then there was nobody there. In the process...
Talking about the video and audio.
Yeah, the video, the audio, a lot of that stuff I lost because people came through my house and stole a lot of stuff. They stole a lot of stuff from people that said they were part of the MUFON group. They turned out not to have anything to do with that group. So, I got to the point where I couldn't trust anybody.
Can you roll the window up?
Yes. Got to the point where I really couldn't trust anybody with any of the, any of the material I had, any of the evidence, if you want to call it that. But people say, well, why don't you just throw it all out there, on the TV? Well, you've thrown out a lot of it. A lot of it is out for people to see. I mean, you can go on YouTube, it's free. You can learn the whole story. You can learn more about that there than you probably learn if you go to a lecture with me. But I'm just one guy. I mean, this isn't just about me. It's happened to thousands of people all over the world. And, I just wish people would recognize and give some credibility to the evidence of the people who've had these experiences. It's a truly unique thing. It's truly frightening. But what's more frightening is the human beings and the dark forces that I call them, the bad people that keep us from talking about what's happened in our life. That's the part that's just not right. It's not right at all. We shouldn't have to hide anything.
So just take this back to October the 15th, 96. Or is there anything you want to ask me first?
Well, first of all, it's a privilege to meet you, to share with you, and what you've been doing to tell other people about my experience and about other people's experiences all over the world. On October 15th, 1996, I was walking in the woods with my dog, Susie, and we'd done this many times before, nothing unusual, and I parked my Jeep, and we had been walking for about an hour in the woods, in the Cascade Mountains of Washington State. And it was a beautiful afternoon, beautiful October day, and
all of a sudden my dog took off running, and she began barking, almost like she was chasing an animal, and I lost sight of her. But this wasn't unusual. It's something she did all the time. I mean, dogs run off and they chase squirrels and they chase, raccoons. And this is an area that's forest. It's not a park, so you don't have to have your dog on a leash. And I mean, it's the Washington State forest. So, and very remote. It's 60 miles east of Seattle, which takes about an hour to get to. And she was barking, and I lost sight of her. And then she'd run back up to me, happily, like normal, and we just kept walking. And we'd done this many times in this area, this very same area. So it was very comfortable for me in this moment. But one time she took off barking and ran farther away, where I really, really had no idea quite where she was, other than I could hear the barking. And it began to sound threatening, or either she had found something and was trying to tree an animal, trying to get toward an animal, or an animal was trying to attack her. And the more I listened, the more I could hear her actually in a defensive or fearful sounding bark. And it was just chaos sounding. I mean, it wasn't just one or two, it was just almost nonstop. So, like I said, she was totally out of sight. I wanted to help if I could, or detangle her if she was involved with some other kind of animal. There are wildcats, there are small bears and raccoons that all can threaten a dog. So I wanted to try to find her, so I went and kept running toward the sound, where I actually heard this yelping sound. And I got where I still couldn't see her through the brush, because there's a very dense underbrush in this area, in this forest. But I could hear that I was close. I was probably within 50 to 75 feet of her. And I dropped my backpack that I had, and I picked up a branch that happened to be laying on the ground that was about 6 or 7 feet long, about the width of a baseball bat. And I thought, I can at least defend her off of some, animal that she's obviously engaged with. But I couldn't hear any other sounds of any other animals, but I just heard her barking and yelping, like she was either being bitten or threatened. So I ran toward the sound, and I kind of ran down a hill and over a little rise, and just as I went over the next rise, I found myself face to face with this creature, this small, childlike in size creature, that at the moment, because of the darkness of the canopy, the tree canopy, I couldn't make out all of the features. I could see that it was dark, almost black in color, shaded. It had a head, it had 2 arms, 2 legs, and a torso, and my dog seemed to be attached to it, like it had bitten the arm of this creature. But the second I saw this creature grab my dog, which was attached to her arm, and start throwing my dog over its head like it weighed nothing. Well, my dog weighed 100 pounds. It was a golden retriever, 7-year-old golden retriever. It's a big dog. Well, this was being thrown back and forth so quickly, like there was no weight at all. And the second I even got that in my mind, it stopped. The thing looked at me, kind of made this hissy scream, and then literally ripped my dog's head apart at the jaw, tearing her head right in half, and her body and blood and tissue flowing all over her body and onto the ground. After witnessing my dog being torn apart, I didn't think. I didn't have any premeditation. I just jumped forward and acted, struck out with this branch, and hit it as hard as I could, trying to kill it because of what I just witnessed, it killing my dog. I didn't know if it was going to attack me next. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what it was. And I didn't take any time to contemplate that. A lot of people have asked, well, why didn't you take some time to figure this out? This all happened in a matter of 10 to 12 seconds at the most from the time I came over the rise until I struck it. And if you would have witnessed what it was doing to my dog, I'm sure anyone would have tried to stop that action. Right after that happened, when I hit it, it fell to the ground and screamed as it started to fall. And I screamed too. I screamed too. In fear, in desperation, I don't know, in anger, because I was angry about what I saw. But instantly I was sick. I fell to the ground, on my knees, on my hands. I couldn't breathe right. I felt like there was a pressure on my chest. I was starting to hyperventilate. I was sick to my stomach. I couldn't control my bowels. Or my bladder, everything let go at once. And if anybody's ever had any part of that condition, you know how you feel. You know that you are just absolutely paralyzed in that moment with a crippling sickness. Well, I'd never been that sick, ever in my life. I didn't know what was going on. Because everything happened so fast, so quickly. I'd never experienced anything like that feeling in my body, let alone something that ripped my dog apart. Now, some people have said, well, maybe it was a psychosis that you had, an illusion. Maybe something happened that was really too psychologically damaging that you couldn't recognize the reality of what was going on. Like maybe my dog had been killed by a bear, and my mind just recreated this fantasy. Well, I know that isn't true. I've played it over and over in my mind. I've tried to rationalize it away. I've tried to, at the moment it happened, I tried to deny that any of this was happening. I didn't want to believe that I was in this state, in this physical condition, that I had witnessed it. And I was sick, I was on the ground, I couldn't get up, my muscles were like paralyzed in the point that I had no strength to get up. And everything seemed foreign, everything seemed strange at that moment. I mean, the ground felt spongy instead of normal, like normal dirt and rocks. It felt like mud, like thick mud, like I almost couldn't move in the air. The density of the air had changed. Even the temperature, even the sounds, the normal sounds in the forest were gone. How could this be happening? I kept asking myself, what is this? Is this the condition of my being sick? My body is in such peril? Am I dying for some reason? I mean, I was a doctor. I was a medical doctor. I understand that your body can go into trauma and go into shock and create situations that you can't rationalize out. And I was trying to imagine this must be what is happening to me. This actually must be what is happening. But the fact that I would turn around and there within 3 feet of my face was this thing that had killed my dog. And now I could see that it wasn't a child, you know, and I could see its face, I could see the blood from its skull where I had hit it, that it had breached its skull. There was cranial matter literally laying on its skin and on the ground beneath it. And there was a lot of blood. It wasn't moving, it wasn't breathing, and as far as I was concerned, it was dead, and I was happy that it was dead. But I was still in this peril of health. I just couldn't stop hyperventilating. And I knew that unless I slowed my breathing down, I would go into shock. So I tried to control my breathing. I actually tried to force myself to calm down, but as soon as I would do that, my mind would jump ahead and I'd start breathing again, really, really hard. And I'd try to crawl around and try to get up, and then I'd fall back down. I'd lean against a tree and I'd fall back down. And then I don't know how long I was there. It felt like a long time at first, but then again it felt very quick. But I had been on my knees for what felt like an hour, and I heard a sound. I heard another sound. And at that moment, all the sound was silent. It was like somebody had put a lid over the top of this area, where normally you would hear the sound of the wind or the birds in the trees. There was nothing. So either my ears and my own hearing had stopped functioning normally, or something actually had silenced this area. Now, I wasn't rationalizing this like I'm talking to you now. I wasn't thinking that, gee, maybe this or maybe that could be happening. I was in panic because I thought I was dying. I mean, that's what my mind was telling me. My body is in crisis. But I heard this other sound, and I thought, oh, it's somebody, it's another person. It's a hiker, and maybe they can help me because I really needed help. So I tried to stand up and I'd fall back down. I tried to walk a few steps, I'd fall back down, and I'd crawl. And I could hear this sound, this ebbing, kind of wavering harmonic tone. And I thought, well, maybe it's somebody with a radio, like a boombox, like somebody's got some CDs playing. And I kept listening and I kept searching with my eyes and my ears.
We're just getting started, and I hope to see you again for part 3 of this story. With cameras everywhere now, it's virtually impossible for the powers that be to hide all the evidence of these cases from around the world. I now leave you with some more amazing closed-circuit footage of what appears to be 2 friends walking somewhere in the night until, well, you just have to see this for yourselves.
Doctor, when did you hear that scream?
Well, after a few hours had gone by and I had called Gary back, and he had calmed me down from crawling practically around the ceiling, we both went out to look again. And I figured, we went out and looked. We did the same thing. I opened the freezer so that I could know that I was not imagining this. And the same thing happened. And when the freezer was opened, this thing let out a scream like I have never heard before. It literally, the force of the sound made you feel like something was pushing against your chest.
The air around it as it screams actually bubbles and moves.
It's felt like the air was moving.
God.
And at that time, it was just, open and closed. And later on, I felt like I had to try to document this.
Of course.
So I took my camera and I took the recorder and I turned it on and I again opened the freezer, and that's when I recorded this sound.
Would you play the sound for us once again, please?
Yes, I will. Hold on.
Okay. Here it comes. Oh my God, that's awful. Oh God, that's awful.
I'm glad you returned for more of this remarkable story. What you just heard was from a 1999 interview with the late Art Bell. This story has many interesting pieces, and I plan on reviewing them all with you, so you can make your own determination of what the truth is.
Agenda. Their agenda is to basically keep everyone fractured from information and from any kind of harmony within our lives and our social aspect of our lives. That agenda translates into other issues, including greed, opportunity, aggressive actions that keep, well, shall we say, that keep people from coming together on issues. In the past, long ago, we would socialize around the church. We would come together in groups and do our praying and our socialization with two different aspects. One for the ability to deal with spirituality within our own religions, and then the other one was basically to come together as community members to support the community effort. Well, I personally believe that a lot of that has been lost. The ability to come together and help and harmonize within each other. But there's one other aspect, and I'd just like to touch upon it, is I think the day has come where more people realize the truth in regard to that we've been visited and we are being visited than those who don't believe it. I think more people are aware, but there still is a fear factor. Anytime you don't have information, anytime you're kept away from those who can give you a better education on things, the result is fear, the absence of information. And we still are living within those boundaries in some regard, some respect, because the amount of people who have actually listened to those of us who have had contact is a fairly small percentage of the overall populace of the whole earth. And I believe that it's spreading. This information is spreading quickly. People are coming together, talking more and more about the true aspect of our lives and our lives intermingling with extraterrestrial life. I think we are beginning to assimilate those ideas into our culture, which makes us stronger as a whole, as a species. But there's a lot more information that people don't know, and we need to educate them. We need to find ways to bring people out of the fear, out of the darkness, and to let them know it's okay to not know something, at the same time to give them the tools to learn for themselves.
All right, we had our first documentary shot in May, May 9th to be exact. After we shot that documentary, some things happened. Can we go into that? What transpired after our first meeting?
Well, it's something that I've been reluctant to talk about, but I will talk about it. At least get it on the record for this time. Over the years, I've been pursued by some pretty bad people who seriously have tried every way possible to silence me and this information from coming out. They've done everything except kill me. After we did the interview together and a few days went by, I traveled to Europe to talk to some people in regard to a conference that I was hoping to attend in Switzerland. And basically what transpired is they set out to kill me. They set out to assassinate me in a fire in a hotel. I was locked in a room within the hotel. The hotel was set on fire. And I barely escaped alive. Now, I won't physically give you the details of how I got out, but I will tell you that for months, 4 months, it was very difficult. I had a lot of medical problems. I was burned. Inside of my lungs were burned. I've had lung clots because of it. I've suffered some minor heart attacks because of this. Your pulmonary system, your breathing system, basically affects your entire body. So when my lungs were damaged, it basically damaged my entire circulation and breathing and immune system. So for the last, from the time this happened until about 4 months after, I was literally in and out of the hospital weekly, and sometimes for months at a time. I believe that this was intentionally done. We have located the people who planned and perpetrated this. And those people have basically been taken care of. Authorities were contacted in some respects. They helped to handle this circumstance and to legally take care of some of the aspects of this. But what we found out after this had happened was the lines drawn back to the original planners, that they were involved with several sub-governments, some agencies that many times people say are involved in black ops or dark operations or illegal operations. And it's what most of us have always known, that there is an apparatus set up to basically squash any information and its validity, to basically target those people who are willing to come forward and talk about what they know. Now, this has happened for years and years during all the time that I have been talking with people, but never this severe to me personally. But there came a time where I think the information that I was talking about and revealing publicly around the world was noticed to be damaging and basically outing some of these people that have been giving and perpetrating the disinformation. I think it got too close to home. So they just decided they had an opportunity to take me out, and that's exactly what they set out to do. And they almost were successful. my feelings about it is anger, of course, frustration for, having been laid up for 4 months, basically 4 months of my life being gone. It's been very difficult on my friends and my team to be able to deal with this situation when for approximately 2 months they didn't know if I was going to survive it. We put a lot of things on hold because of necessity. The public who writes letters to us and to me didn't get their email answered for a few months because we were in the process of trying to understand where this attack came from, who initiated it, and who was to blame. So for that, I apologize to people who were asking questions and wanted to know why I wasn't answering, but I wasn't able to. I was either in a coma half the time or in an oxygen tent or having my lungs cleaned daily. I was struck by infection and one end of the stick to the other. It was a very difficult situation health-wise, but I survived it by the grace of God and my team and my friends who have helped nurse me back to health. It's a reality that I had to deal with. A lot of people recently who only recently found out about this have said, well, why didn't I come out publicly with some announcement? Because if I would have done that, there are people that would have spun this information and said that I was doing it as a publicity stunt. Well, that's why we didn't talk about it. That's one of the reasons. The other reason was I was so sick and crippled by what happened. My own team didn't know whether I was going to survive or not. And at that point, everything was on hold. Everything. So that's the reason nothing came out about it initially. And I'm only talking about it now briefly to give you and the public some information to know that this is why I wasn't able to continue to communicate. If there's anything that I've done, it's to communicate. All of my life, all of this time for the last 13 years. And there are those who want to make you believe that I'm hiding under some rock somewhere and afraid to talk to people. I've never stopped talking about this. I've never been afraid. And I'm not afraid now. Even after what happened, I'm not afraid now. Because people have a right to know, and I have a right to talk about this. It's my truth. It's my life. And it was my experience. And for anybody who stands up and says, well, I think I would have done it differently, or I don't think that that's necessarily quite the way it was, I'd say bullshit. You weren't there. I was. And it's time people get a real understanding that this isn't a debate. This is what happened to me in my life. This is my reality. If you don't want to hear it, don't listen. If you want to have your own lecture, go have your own lecture. But I'm talking to the people who asked me to give them information. I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. I'm just telling people what happened to me. And that's all.
Hey, can I ask this of you? I've talked to you before, and you've told me about some of the damage that they've done physically, and you said outright you don't even want to talk about it because you don't want people to think you're going for sympathy. But I really, truly, honestly believe that they need to hear the physical damage that has been done to you. I mean, you whitewash over it, and you're real vague about it. But I really would like for you to go on camera and talk about this. I think it's important. I really do. I mean, I understand your position on it, but people need to know that this actually this is what happened to you. They need to hear this. Can you go into some details?
Since this happened in 1996, People have come forward and offered to help in probably every aspect that anybody could imagine help. They've offered me vehicles to use, houses to stay in, food, clothes on my back, help to run websites, to answer email, to work in some one form or another in helping us produce venues for people to listen to this information. I respect and highly thank all of those people, all the people who have supported me. Some of the things that people don't realize is this is 2009. And in the last 13 years, 9 people are dead because they offered to help me. They gave everything to help me. Dead is dead. Dead is not an illusion. My friend Gary, when all this first went down, other people that I wrote about in the book, Dolly, even some of my own family members have been stressed to the point, I believe, of death because of the badgering and harassment that was brought down on my family and people who tried to help me. Every aspect of evil has been wielded at me and people who have set out to support me within my team, within my group. People have fallen and more people have joined. At one time or another, I've decided to quit because of this. I've said it wasn't worth it. You know, I'm not going to take anybody else's life with me. And people have picked up the sword and pushed me forward to continue. All the people who write to us, who send letters encouraging that somebody needs to be a voice for those who have had contact. And that's why I'm continued. That's why. Because they took everything else away from me. They left me with nothing. I had no other option. I couldn't go back to my old way of life because they took it away. They destroyed my career, my credentials, my financial rewards that I had gathered over a period of 20 years. They destroyed all of that. The reason is because they left me with no tools. They left me naked, without a way to survive, thinking that I would go crazy or just be the fool in the eye of the public. They've done everything from harass my mother and father, who were elderly people that have since died, to torturing me. Now, what constitutes torture? That's a very personal thing. Some people would say, well, it's they're harassing you, they're calling you a liar. Well, that's a form of torture. That's psychological. But what do you call it when somebody takes a steel spike, ties you to a chair, and shoves it through your testicle? What do you call that? Where's the validity? Where's the support of the naysayers that say, oh, well, that would never happen? They wouldn't do that. I mean, where's the humanity? People don't know. People don't realize. I realize in talking to groups all over the world that there are guidelines that I try to meet in with respect to the audience that I'm speaking to. I realize that some people only come because they're interested in the phenomenon. But right now we're talking about a reality of life and death. We're talking about torture. We're talking about the pursuit of trying to silence information, which is the same thing that was done in World War II in trying to extinguish a race of people for a different set of ideas. Now, I don't see that as much different than what's going on with me. I am up against a group or groups of people that hide behind every kind of deception that they can create to only do one thing, to make people like me either quit talking or look like fools. Well, my question to that is why? Why isn't information good for everyone? If I am only a fool, if I am only making this up, why has the effort been so constant, so deliberate, so physical, if I'm only some crazy guy? Because what they've done is they've validated that I'm the real deal. And I've had to deal with some of this stuff in a way that I never thought that I would have to deal with any kind of human existence. I've had to become what I hate about this. I've had to literally say, I don't care just to survive about these people. So when people say, this is an exciting thing for you to be dealing with, this is a opportunity for new information, those things are correct. But there's also a dark side to this, a very, very dark side. And most people don't want to hear that. Most people don't want to know that human beings can be this cruel and this terrible in this day and age. And I know there'll be people that are hearing this, they'll say, well, Jonathan, why didn't you just go to the police? Because a lot of the police are also part of this. Because a lot of the elected officials are behind some of these organizations in every country of the world. This is a war between good and evil, between someone who truly has only a message to deliver. I'm not asking anyone to support me. I'm not asking anyone to give me any money. In fact, I've denied all those things. Sure, we've sold books. Sure, we've done television shows and been paid for our efforts and for the DVDs. People have asked for them all over the world. We created the DVDs because they asked us for more information. It cost a lot of money to produce all of those things, to travel all over the world. And a lot of times, I've done it on my own dime. Why do I do it? Why do I keep beating my head against this wall of negativity or disrespect? Because the thousands of us who have had contact know that there is a reason that's bigger than each one of us individually. We know that there's a value to this information that's bigger than one of us alone. And I know that there's a reason that's going to affect us all. And that is currently affecting us, whether people want to wake up to that reality or not. I personally believe that our existence is being challenged. I think that we all need to recognize the validity of the human experience and see it for what it truly is, not what we've always thought it was, but for the reality behind it. I've talked about that in the past. I've talked about that this information is enlightening for all of us and that it can bridge some of the disbelief and some of the, through education, can basically bring us along to better understand why we're here, why we are what we are today. It's difficult. It's difficult to comprehend, difficult to understand. Even when you spend hours and hours and hours listening to somebody who has great knowledge of it, it's still difficult to digest. I've been reluctant to tell of all the negative sides of what I've had to deal with, what my team has had to deal with, and what other people who have had contact have had to deal with physically and emotionally. Because it's painful. It's personally painful. It's physically painful. And it's sad. It's sad that a few very powerful individuals can suppress and force other people to disbelieve something or not open their minds enough to educate themselves. That's very sad. But it's a sign of the times we live in.
Can you go into the hypocrisy of the researchers in ufology? I've sat and watched those guys for about 15 to 20 years talk about stories that usually don't have enough concrete evidence, but they usually are, hearsay tales handed down through the generations. Rodwell, yeah, I've heard about that since 95. Your story comes along 3 years later, 98, and this is concrete proof, validated, physical evidence, photographic evidence. Get into how they suppress, or your views of the suppression or the hypocrisy of the ufologists, the researchers in ufology.
First of all, the interest in what's called ufology, I think, is genuine. I think the public is very interested. I think there's a validity to that interest. The sad part of this subject, this arena that's called ufology, is run like a circus, in my opinion. Most of the would-be researchers are not in it for the research, in my opinion. They're in it for self-gratification, to boost their own egos, to boost their own pocketbooks, financially, egotistically. Greed dominates these people who can make the best conference, who can enlighten people with the newest innovation of information. I've given away information for years. It's on the internet. It's in programs, television programs that have been aired all over the world. People have asked me, why did I quit talking in the United States? Because of the hypocrisy. Because when I first came out, and I was invited to go to a conference in Laughlin, Nevada, put on by the International UFO Congress, I was asked to tell my story. And at that conference, the very first of its size that I had ever spoken to in public, I said this statement to 750 plus people in the audience that also incorporated all of the major UFO research heads and groups.
As we end part 3, some of you may be doing your own research, which I highly recommend you do, and some may already feel the story is too crazy to be real. I want to leave you with a sample of some of the audio recording of Dr. Reed's landlord's testimony from Art Bell interviewing him. Join me for part 4 when we cover all of the recording and more of the interview. Please also remember to subscribe if you're obsessed with learning the truth about the alien UFO phenomena.
Well, all right, back now to my guests. The gentleman, welcome back, Dr. Reed, Robert Wraith. And we are now joined by Larry Arthur. But first, Dr. Reed, when exactly in the chronology of events in the story was your house ransacked?
The 9th day from day one when I brought the creature home. I basically had been driving back to my house in the evening and realized that there were 3 large step vans parked in front of my house and people going in and out them with hand trucks, with men dressed in like moving attire, like similar to a jumpsuit.
Right.
And I kept going, and then later came back early in the morning to my house being just completely torn apart. It was just as if a cyclone had gone through there.
We now have on the line Larry Arthur. Larry, how do you know Dr. Reed?
Well, we met about 12 years ago through a mutual acquaintance and had a common interest at the time, happened to be music, and, just developed a friendship and a relationship, and I've been a landlord for about 15 years. And
what do you have, apartments, condos, what?
No, just single family.
Oh, single homes?
Yes.
All right. When did you hear from the doctor, and how did you learn that something had happened to his house? How did that happen?
Well, he called me and asked if we could meet at the house, and we made arrangements to do that. I went over there.
You had been his landlord for how long?
Oh, about 5 years.
5 years, all right. So he called you up and probably said, God, you've got to get over here and see this. Something awful's happened or something like that?
Well, he didn't provide too many details over the phone, but he didn't sound like his usual self. And I must admit, in the 15 years that I've been a landlord, this was certainly the most bizarre thing I've ever come across.
All right, so over you went, and what did you find?
Well, I don't know how to describe it. It certainly wasn't vandalism.
Well, all right, back now to my guests. The gentleman, welcome back, Dr. Reed, Robert Wraith. And we are now joined by Larry Arthur. But first, Dr. Reed, when exactly in the chronology of events in the story was your house ransacked?
The 9th day from day one when I brought the creature home. I basically had been driving back to my house in the evening and realized that there were 3 large step vans parked in front of my house and people going in and out them with hand trucks, with men dressed in like moving attire, like similar to a jumpsuit.
Right.
And I kept going. And then later came back early in the morning to my house being just completely torn apart. It was just as if a cyclone had gone through there.
We now have on the line Larry Arthur. Larry, how do you know Dr. Reed?
Well, we met about 12 years ago through a mutual acquaintance and had a common interest at the time, happened to be music, and just developed a friendship and a relationship. And I've been a landlord for about 15 years. And
what do you have, apartments, condos, what?
No, just single family.
Oh, single homes?
Yes.
All right. When did you hear from the doctor, and how did you learn that something had happened to his house? How did that happen?
Well, he called me and asked if we could meet at the house, and we made arrangements to do that. I went over there.
You had been his landlord for how long?
Oh, about 5 years.
5 years, all right. So he called you up and probably said, God, you've got to get over here and see this. Something awful's happened or something like that?
Well, he didn't provide too many details over the phone, but he didn't sound like his usual self. And I must admit, in the 15 years that I've been a landlord, this was certainly the most bizarre thing I've ever come across.
All right, so over you went, and what did you find?
Well, I don't know how to describe it. It certainly wasn't vandalism, but it looked to me like somebody was looking for something. I do a lot of remodeling, and in fact, after this happened, I had been considering selling the house. This clinched that decision for me. It took me a couple of months working, in my spare time, but I put quite a few hours in the house getting it ready for sale and cleaning up.
Well, how would you describe the condition of the house? I mean, were drawers torn open and emptied? Were things smashed? Or was it a search that had gone on, in your opinion? Or, what was the condition?
Well, it was a mess inside. What was unusual to me was the house had attic access and it had a crawl space, yet somebody had cut an access right through the floor. They had also cut an access through the ceiling in a couple of spots.
Really?
Everything that had been hanging on the walls was gone, was off the walls.
And on the floor, or just gone?
Some things, there was kind of a central pile where things had been kind of piled in one spot. There were some things missing. All of the electrical outlet covers,
yes,
were off.
What?
Yeah, all of the telephone outlet covers were off. The face to the electrical panel was off. The toilet had been lifted off of the wax ring and was sitting alongside the toilet. It was weird.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
You, as a landlord, you probably went, good Lord, Doctor, what have you done?
Well, I was kind of dumbfounded, really.
No. Dr. Reed obviously was there. And how did he explain this to you? Did he say, I came home and I found this?
Well, I know Jonathan to be probably one of the most steady and dependable people I've ever known. And he was pretty shook, and he had explained to me that something had happened recently on one of his weekend outings in the woods, that his dog Susie had been killed by something in the woods.
So he told you some of the whole story?
Well, he was really reluctant to provide much detail at that time.
I understand.
Had some concern that, he might be in some trouble. And he was kind of panicked, really.
Okay, was he moving at that time? Did he want to get out of there, or where did it go from there? I mean,
well, I had been considering selling the house, and this was kind of the capper, for that. At that point, I fixed the house up, put it on the market, and sold it.
And at that point then, Dr. Reed, I take it you moved, you got the hell out of there.
Well, first of all, there was nothing left of mine in the house except things that were torn apart. Like the sofa had been just completely shredded, like somebody had been looking through the inside of it.
You saw that, Larry?
I saw that, and what was interesting in the months that I was working on, in the time that I was working on the house after this event, there were some other small details. Number one, there wasn't much trace. When you look around for, like boot markings, footprints, what have you.
Right.
What was interesting in the couple of days following, when I was out in the yard, this was really weird. Different spots of the yard had what I would describe as what looked like quarter-inch holes. And it looked to me like somebody had actually taken a rod or something and had probed parts of the yard.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, really.
Now, what were you saying to Dr. Reed during all of this? You must have been saying, did you do this? Do you know who did it? How did
I don't know if I can say that on the radio.
Okay, don't then, please.
Well,
I get the idea.
The first thing that came to my mind was to call the police.
Yeah, right. And, Doctor, what'd you say?
Well, I said that's his option, but I'm not going to be there.
In other words, you were scared.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, there was nothing of mine left worth even packing up. Everything that I had was gone. I mean, I had 2 filing cabinets that are, 5 feet tall.
Right.
Weigh about 800 pounds apiece.
Right.
That were gone. They were just gone. Things that I hadn't even unpacked for years. You collect things, like boxes of books that you had in school.
Right.
They were gone. Everything was gone.
They cleaned that house up.
Well, I'm a very conservative individual, and if I had not experienced something like this, I wouldn't have believed it.
Larry, remember the garage door?
Oh, yeah.
What about the garage door?
Well, I had a fairly heavy-duty. The garage door had some access to the inner yard. There was a typical garage door that you would drive a car through on the outside.
Everybody should remember this is where the freezer was, where the alien being was kept, in the garage. So go ahead.
Towards the inside of the yard, there was an access door. And it was a steel door, not commercial steel, but like a Stanley metal door.
Right.
I had a very heavy-duty deadbolt on it, and it appeared that had given them some trouble, whoever these people were, getting it open.
Yes.
So they removed the entire door frame. The door frame was literally, door frame and the door was pried out.
Holy smokes.
Literally torn out of the side of the garage.
If you've returned to the Storyist to review Part 4, then you're serious about knowing the truth in this case. You've just heard the testimony of Dr. Reed's landlord, Larry Arthur, and like you, I've read the many online posts calling Dr. Reed's story a hoax. Here's 2 more people's testimonial. One woman, named Betty, who claims to have worked with Dr. Reed at the University of Washington Medical Center. And you'll also hear from Valerie, who claimed to be his banker. The claims these people are making are not only disturbing, but makes one logically think he could certainly be lying, as we've seen great hoaxes attempted before. But what motivation would his past landlord and these 2 women have corroborating his story?
Back in 1996, I'd worked for him for about 5 years at the University of Washington Medical Center. It's in October of 1996, probably about the middle of the month. I think it was around the 15th that Jonathan came into the office, and you could clearly see that something had happened to Jonathan, and he was, kind of subdued and quiet. Something had happened to his dog the weekend prior, and I knew that he was very upset by that, even though he still was very professional in the office. And within about a week, Jonathan no longer existed. His office was cleaned out. The nurses on his staff were reassigned to other positions in the hospital, and were told, as far as we were concerned, that Dr. Jonathan Reed did not exist. He never worked at the University of Washington Medical Center, and it would be wise for us to adhere to that thought as well. Otherwise, we would no longer be working as well. There were no questions asked, no questions answered, and that's just the way it was. And it was like he was just completely and totally railroaded right out of the hospital. And the project that we were working on was closed down. The patients were sent to other doctors in the hospital. We were all advised not to speak about Dr. Reed, not to speak about him, not to speak, to anybody within the hospital, outside the hospital, whatever. Management had decided that Dr. Reed did not exist. And they were very clear that as far as we were concerned and as far as our job security was concerned, we'd never heard of him.
That's Betty, the nurse. Now let's hear Valerie, the banker.
For many years, I was in banking. Probably 20 years, I was a banker in various aspects of banking. Dr. Reed was a favorite among all the tellers. I mean, he came in and he would often bring his dog, because we gave dog biscuits out to dogs in the drive up to keep them. And so his dog Susie loved coming to the bank. He couldn't drive anywhere near the neighborhood, even if he didn't want to make a transaction. And he came in once or twice a week, sometimes more. And over the years, I did a lot of transactions with him as I moved up in the bank. Loan payments and deposits, and he always had a good account. He had a lot of money. There came a day when we were called into a meeting, and we were told that we didn't know him. If anybody asked about him, we never knew this customer. And of course, in banking, there's a huge confidentiality anyway. And we thought, doctor, maybe it was a suit. Of course, we wouldn't talk about it. No, we didn't know him. There never was a person. And I went to check his his signature card. I knew all his paperwork, and I knew none of it was there. Nothing. It had been there the night before, because I had been looking at loan payments and when they come due, and I thought that he had one coming due. And oftentimes we did a phone transaction to automatically transfer, and just preparing, and it was all gone, everything. And I basically got in trouble because they said he didn't exist, and I said he did exist, and what was going on, and this was against the law. And they said that if I wanted to work in any sort of banking, that he did not exist. And what didn't I understand? After a while, Jonathan contacted me. As I said, we became friends, and I was very concerned. He contacted me, and we met, not locally at all. And I was willing to do that. I was so relieved to hear that he was alive, but we met several times. So when I went back, I took on the bank. I mean, I let them know that I knew they were lying. And I'd be glad to come forward and say that. And I would go forward with a suit because what they were doing was illegal. And it was amazing how they really they were angry with me. I was angry with them. But there wasn't a lot of power playing. And suddenly they were forthcoming with part of Jonathan's money, about half of it.
I know these little guys are so far advanced compared to what we are. They may be a million years advanced from us. We don't have all that information. I don't have those answers. But I do know that many people have seen them besides me. Many people have had a similar experience. Maybe not exactly the same, but similar. So it's not just this person telling this story. And all these people have supported me, both in physical means and in spiritual means. I mean, they've given their heart. They've given me their homes to live in. They've fed me. They've clothed me. If I didn't have the support from these people, I probably wouldn't be here today.
You mentioned the 500 people that have witnessed these beings. Can you go into that? Can you go into the those who have contacted you talking about being at that lecture and seeing what they saw and trying to get a picture of the beings that appeared?
Well, I mean, the conference was being recorded, videotaped, and we do have a copy of that tape. There isn't much on it except a little bit of a streak of light across the bottom. There was a recording of the crowd kind of being afraid and being startled by what was going on. Most of the people don't want to be identified, rightfully so, because when you come forward, people's lives are torn apart. But the point is, more and more people are aware. Okay? Are we going to release all of this information? Little by little. But this information, along with others that I've kept safe, is what I believe has kept me alive. Okay? The link artifact, the device that I found. Is safely tucked away with other people. It's never with me. And if anything happens to me, everybody has so much other information about me, about what's gone on, about all of the things that are stored. This will become a much bigger problem for the people that try to keep this information suppressed. They've tried to blacklist me. They've tried to make me out as a crazy man, some insane person, motivated for who knows what reason. I let everyone judge for themselves. If this experience happened to you, how would you deal with it? That's the question I always ask everybody else. I am not trying to convince anybody that anything happened. I don't want to convince anybody. I'm not trying to convince anybody. I'm not trying to prove any of the evidence anymore at all. I stopped all of that 6 years ago because we had the proof. We had the scientific evidence proven. What the DNA told us, what the blood and tissue samples told us, because I took this creature home from the woods. I wrapped it up in a thermal blanket that I had and literally carried it back to my Jeep as sick as I was because it was very light and I didn't want to leave it there. I was afraid. I thought maybe I'd murdered something. I wasn't thinking clearly. I just thought, I'm going to take it with me. And I took it with me. I drove home and I put it in my freezer in my garage because it was a piece of meat. It was literally a dead animal. And I didn't know how else to preserve it. And many things went through my mind. It wasn't just the clear thought of, I'm bringing this to the world. Probably the biggest thought is, I want to bury this and I don't want to talk to anybody about it. I didn't even want to admit to myself what had happened. And then little by little, my feelings changed. I got to where I could rationalize some of this. I got to where I could think about some of this. Other people helped me. Other people were involved in reacquainting myself with this new reality. Friends, family, other people who were very supportive, people who I call the Alliance, who gave me some direction, who aided me several different ways over those first 9 days.
Your story is being told all over the world. Other countries have come to accept your story. They want to hear more. just talk about a little bit about how it's accepted in other countries and how it's been just like blacklisted in the States, if you can.
Well, before any of this happened, I knew very little about it. The phenomena of ufology or lights in the sky or flying saucers. I pretty much concluded that it was pretty much science fiction. Once this happened to me, once I started to realize that what had happened was real, then I started to become aware of the realities of other people and other situations, and that this has been going on for possibly thousands of years. But we just never recognized it clearly for thousands of reasons, not just one reason. I mean, whether our society would accept it, whether religions would allow it, because in some respects it can be detrimental to the foundation of a religious order. So I can rationalize why people would not want to bring this into their society, into their community. But in traveling around the world and being asked to speak about this, my own experience, I've learned that other societies, other cultures are much more willing nowadays in modern times to embrace this idea, to open their minds up and be able to accept the fact that maybe we aren't the top of the food chain and the intelligence line. And I know, as well as many thousands of other people, that that's definitely true. We are not the smartest, ants on the hill, so to speak. Other people, other countries openly have accepted me. Mexico embraced my story probably more than anyone. Literally gave me the ability to become a citizen of their country, no questions asked, to have a life, a house, to put me back into an occupation that I knew, that I'd been trained to do. Incredibly warm support, at the least. Other countries around the world, Japan, in Europe, many places in Europe, all support the reality of extraterrestrial or extra-dimensional life in the universe. The biggest deterrent for this information is what lies in the United States. And I ask the same question. I say, why? Why is it that the greatest country in the world, who has the greatest economy, who has been the strongest country, and on the forefront of technology, why within the United States and the United States government do we not only not talk about it or accept it, but we find every way we can to dismiss it, discredit those who ever talk about it, or make them all out to be fools? Why is that? And these are the questions I keep asking. I don't have those answers. I have a lot of speculations that other people have told me, and they go from one end of the gamut to the other. I mean, everything from conspiracy theories to the fact that some people think the United States government is in cahoots, in cooperation with extraterrestrial life of one race or another. I don't have those answers. I know what's happened to me. I know what's continued to happen to me. And I know that within the United States, there is a military-type apparatus designed to squash, to humiliate, to harass, and or silence permanently people who talk and have absolute evidence. And I am probably the best example I can give of that. I know what's happened to me. I know how my life was literally torn apart within 9 days, and I left the country of the United States because I felt in fear of my life, my family, and my friends. This was not a joke. This was not an easy situation that I chose to become a flag wearer, bearer of this new truth. This was something that was thrown at me, and I literally wanted to get out of the way and run away from it. I went to communities within the United States, first coming out, first talking about my own experience for only one reason: to ask for help, to take this away from me. Please take all of this and do something with it. I didn't know what to do with the evidence. I didn't know who to go to trust, because everybody was attacking me and all of my family at the same time. So at that point, I had no choice, but I choose to literally get out of the way of that machinery. And so I went and lived in Canada as a shadow for almost a year.
All right, so you brought the body home. You want to go back into, once you got it home, what you decided to do, who you decided to call?
Well, when I first drove home, on the ride home, I'd been getting sick. I stopped at a few places to get out of the car, to throw up, to try to see if there was somebody at a ranger station. There wasn't anybody there. And I continued to drive home. All I could think of is go home. I was so sick. I wanted to get home. I wanted to find something that was comfortable, something that was familiar. And all of a sudden, I ended up in my carport. I mean, I felt like, boom, I'm there in literally no time. But it had to have taken about an hour to drive back from where this had happened. I had the body wrapped up in this thermal blanket in the back of my Jeep, and I realized that, as I sat in my car, in my carport, I realized that the body is there. I could see it in the rearview mirror. And my dog was no longer in my car. And so what my mind created in that moment was the illusion that I literally told myself, oh, my dog died. I must have wrapped her body up in the thermal blanket, which I can see in the rearview mirror, and I brought her home. And for a moment, that gave me comfort. That made sense, because I didn't have to think about all these other things that I couldn't wrap my mind around. And I was striving and looking and grasping at anything I could to feel better. So I literally took this thermal blanket, this body wrapped up in this thermal blanket, which was relatively small and very, very light, and picked it up, walked from my carport over to my garage, opened the door, which inside my garage was a large box freezer. Some people say it's a coffin freezer. Well, it was an older freezer. Somebody had given it to me. It had hardly any food in it. Had some frozen food in it. I lifted that tray of frozen food out, set it on the ground, and I put the body in. Why did I do that? I didn't want to look at it. Did I want to preserve it for mankind? No, that was never a thought, ever. I just thought, it's a dead body. It's my dog. I'm going to put it in here until I can bury it. And then I'm going to go in the house and take a shower, because I was covered with my own problems, from urinating, from having diarrhea, from sweating, from throwing up. I was a mess. And I was still sick. I was still really, really sick. And I felt dehydrated, terribly dehydrated. And like I'd been run on a marathon. I mean, I was just wasted, tired. So I went in the house. I closed the door of the garage. I went in the house. The door didn't even lock to the garage. But I just closed it, went in the house, and tried to get it out of my mind. Drank some water, stood at my kitchen sink, just in a blank stare for I don't know how long. Went and stood in the shower with all my clothes on, and took my clothes off because I was sick. Laid down for a while. Felt terrible laying down. Sat back up. Got up. Stood at the sink for I don't know how long. Drinking water. Trying not to think about anything. I mean, I was really not wanting to comprehend anything. Just zoning out. And finally, I kind of sat down and I thought, well, I need to call somebody, and I just need some contact. So I tried to call my girlfriend. She wasn't home. Left her a message. I'm home. Call me. I didn't feel like saying what had happened because I didn't really want to go there. Maybe my mind just really did not want to go there. I called a good friend of mine, Gary, and he wasn't home, but I left him a message, a little more detail. I said, something's happened. I need to talk to you. I need your help. And I really feel terrible. My body, like I have the flu or I have something is happening. I'm sick. And so, that was the process. There was no list of things to do. It was just survival to the moment by moment. Did I do all the right things? No. If I had it all over to do again, I would change all of it. But nobody ever gave me, an indication of what the rules are to play by. There was no playbook. Nobody gave me a manual on how to deal with this. And I'd never been through anything like this. I'd never heard of anybody being through anything like this. It didn't fit my world. It didn't fit my life, my paradigm, anything. It just didn't fit. So I muddled my way through it just to feel good, just to feel better. And finally my friend called, I said, you got to come over here. My dog is dead, Susie. I mean, he knew my dog. I'd had my dog for a long time. And he said, oh my God, what happened? And I said, well, just come over here. And I really didn't want to talk about it, but I knew I needed somebody, because I thought, well, maybe I need to go to the hospital. Maybe this is worse, and I didn't want to be alone. And so, he finally came over and he said, what's going on? And I didn't really want to tell him. And he kind of said, well, I'll get you some water. Do you need food? Do you need to go to the hospital? And at that point I was saying, I don't know. I just want to sit here. I just want to sit here. And finally, he literally said, well, what happened to Susie? And I said, well, she's dead. Something killed her. And I don't know. I don't know what it was. I didn't even know. I had no idea. And he says, well, what do you mean? An animal killed her? Did she get hit by a car? And I said, no, she didn't get hit by a car. Something killed her. And I said, and I think I killed it. I killed it, trying to defend her. And he said, well, was it a bear? Was it a wildcat? And I didn't say anything for a long time. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know if it was.
Well, the story has certainly grown with the amount of people who've come forward giving their testimonials on Dr. Reed's story. I want to leave you with one more interesting short clip of a presentation that will be seen in its entirety in Part 5 by Dan McAvoy, who's an investigator from the Mutual UFO Network.
I'd like to end up by talking to you a little bit about the extraterrestrial artifact. The link is Dr. Reed called it. I'll tell you the scientific side, and then I will tell you my experience when he used it. Most of you probably have already seen it. If we could just have a picture of what it looks like would be fine. The artifact measures 4 inches long by 3.5 inches wide and is 3/16 of an inch thick. It weighs 170.30 grams. It's found, the metallurgical analysis revealed that it was found to be a composite material made up of silicon polymers, beryllium, aluminum, manganese, copper, zinc, bismuth, and gold. clothing or the skin suit of the alien and interacting with nerve bundles. So it seems that it's some type of device that interacts with nerves, the nervous system. These needles are different in length, and at the base of each pin is an emerald crystal sphere. I really don't know what the purpose of that is at this time. However, and there are also unusual symbols that are found on the outside of the bracelet. These aren't just symbols, but they seem to be some sort of control buttons or control mechanisms, as you see over there. I've tried to find out what they mean. I've looked through the literature. They seem to me to be similar to the strut debris that was shown in the Roswell crash, the symbols that are on the Kecksburg crash in 1965 in Pennsylvania on the acorn-shaped object. They also seem to have some resemblance to Egyptian hieroglyphic type writings. I'm not really sure. If anybody can help us with that, that's one of the lines of investigation we like to keep open. There is a report that I don't want to go into now because it's very long, but when we were in Mexico City, Jaime Maussan was good enough to introduce us to a scientist, an engineer, who has an affiliation with the Ames Institute of NASA. He examined the bracelet, and what he found was emerging nanotechnology.
Buenos días, tardes o noches. A todas las personas que han preguntado qué ha pasado con la esfera que cayó en Buga en el sector de Alto Bonito, pues se llegó el día de recibir alguna noticia, alguna novedad y saber exactamente qué es lo que se viene más adelante. Sin más preámbulos, tengo aquí enfrente a Jaime Maussan, que ha venido desde México para investigar este caso que hasta el día de hoy pues, lo sigue teniendo con bastantes dudas. Vuelvo y digo, ustedes me habían preguntado qué ha pasado, él es quien nos va a dar respuestas el día de hoy.
No se ha pedido absolutamente un solo centavo por esta esfera. La esfera tiene campos electromagnéticos, pues se está transmitiendo señal, hay frecuencias alrededor de la esfera. Yo estoy muy emocionado, me parece un caso auténtico.
Se puede ver asimetría en las figuras, pero en esta esfera, ¿usted qué me podría explicar por qué esa asimetría?
A mí me parece que tenemos en las manos uno de los casos más importantes de la historia.
Primero que todo, un saludo y muchas gracias por estar por acá, don Jaime. Y quisiera, solo para las personas que en este momento de pronto no lo conocen a usted, me diga brevemente quién es usted y usted cómo se inició en este mundo y qué está haciendo actualmente con el tema OVNI.
Yo soy periodista investigador desde hace 50 años en la televisión mexicana. He participado en algunos de los programas periodísticos más importantes que hay en México. Desde 1997 soy conductor y director del programa Tercer Milenio, que presenta cada semana los casos más importantes del fenómeno OVNI. Constantemente presentamos investigaciones especiales. En la actualidad soy director general de un nuevo canal en México, el 3.3 de Televisión Abierta Nacional, donde estamos pues ahora presentando todos nuestros programas y mucho más. Ya diversos investigadores están participando con nosotros en ese canal y estamos abriendo, por decirlo así, una nueva forma de comunicación.
Ya entrando al punto de la esfera, aquí ubicada en Buga, en Colombia, se grabó su aterrizaje y su posterior recolección. ¿Cuál es la novedad que podríamos saber en este momento al respecto, don Jaime?
Bueno, a mí me parece un caso extraordinario. Es la primera vez que tenemos un video de un objeto que vuela, que va de un lugar hacia el otro, en la ciudad de Buga, y que además no es el primer video, es el segundo video, muy posiblemente del mismo objeto, ya que 2 días antes, el 2 de marzo, fue grabada por otra persona, fue grabada la esfera. Entonces tenemos 2 evidencias de lo que parece ser la misma esfera. Y repito, es la primera vez que una persona graba el movimiento de un objeto así y lo sigue hasta el momento que desciende a tierra. Y después se pueden ver en las imágenes cómo esta persona corre rápidamente hacia el lugar, sin que haya duda en ese sentido, y toma esa esfera. Considerar que esto es falso implicaría una conspiración muy sofisticada, o sea, inventar o generar en CGI una imagen de una esfera dando vueltas, y no por una sino por dos personas. A fabricar una esfera, ponerla ahí, simular que esta baja, para entonces recogerla, y finalmente la pregunta sería, ¿para qué? No se ha pedido absolutamente un solo centavo por esta esfera. Todas las investigaciones que se han realizado hasta hoy han demostrado que es un caso extraordinario. Aparentemente la esfera tiene campos electromagnéticos. Aparentemente, y todo esto está por confirmarse, tiene también, pues está transmitiendo señal. Hay frecuencias alrededor de la esfera. No sabemos si llegan o si están viniendo o están saliendo. Pero el caso es que demuestra que esta esfera no es cualquier esfera, no es una esfera que está llena de energía y por tanto que merece toda la investigación. ¿Qué es lo que hay que hacer? Hay que atraer a científicos de gran renombre, especialmente de los Estados Unidos, por desgracia, ya que, y digo por qué por desgracia, porque mientras no lo hagan ellos, los casos no trascienden como deberían. Entonces estamos ya pues tratando de negociar con ellos para que vayan a México, donde se encuentra la esfera, y poder ahora pues poderla investigar cabalmente. También vamos a tratar de involucrar a la Universidad Nacional Autónoma de México. Todavía no lo hemos hecho, pero consideramos que hay suficientes razones que se les pueden exponer para que se interesen en realizar esta investigación. Y esta investigación, aunada a las evidencias en video, podrían convertir a este caso en uno de los más importantes del mundo y de la historia. Así es que estamos en proceso. Todavía no podemos decir que hemos llegado al final de la investigación. Este tipo de casos normalmente toman no solamente semanas, sino meses y a veces años para poderlos definir y llegar a una conclusión. Así es que estamos en ello. Yo estoy muy emocionado, me parece un caso auténtico. Yo quisiera saber las personas que tienen dudas, ¿por qué tienen dudas? ¿Qué es lo que no les parece correcto sobre esta esfera? Y entonces podríamos saber exactamente por qué hay personas que creen que esto es algo que fue fabricado.
Yo tengo una de esas dudas que pueden tener las personas que están viendo detrás de cámaras. Al hacer un análisis en fotos nada más, hay que decirlo, se puede ver asimetría en las figuras y muchas veces se ha comparado como que, bueno, si yo lo quisiera crear y hacerlo con un láser, normalmente eso me lo podría hacer de manera perfecta. Pero en esta esfera, ¿usted qué me podría explicar por qué esa asimetría?
Es que, porque no conocemos a los extraterrestres. O sea, ¿quién puede decir lo que es simetría en los extraterrestres? O sea, no sabemos cómo funcionan, no sabemos cómo fue hecho. O sea, ¿tienen un ejemplo extraterrestre donde se demuestre que es diferente a otras cosas? ¿O solamente son suposiciones, no? Porque si queremos analizarlo desde el punto de vista terrestre, pues entonces posiblemente tenga razón. Posiblemente aquí haríamos algo más simétrico. Sin embargo, esa no es ninguna evidencia. Las evidencias y las pruebas se hacen físicamente y nadie que no haya tenido la esfera en sus manos y haya realizado pruebas puede decir en este momento absolutamente nada. Tenemos el testimonio de una persona que estuvo ahí, que la recogió, que la llevó, que se le entregó a una empresa como Germany, muy importante, que realizó sus propias pruebas y que no pudo llegar a una conclusión. Y por tanto, todos estos elementos son suficientes para considerar que debemos pasar a una nueva etapa de la investigación. Y eso es lo que estamos tratando de hacer. No les pido a nadie que crean o que no crean, que esperen, que sean pacientes y pues trataremos de hacer nuestro trabajo para que pues científicos distintos de diferentes ámbitos pues puedan manifestar su opinión. Por ahora, a mí me parece que tenemos en las manos uno de los casos más importantes de la historia.
Yo quiero hacer una aclaración muy importante en cuanto a todos los comentarios que se han generado a raíz del caso con Germany Company. Primero, a mí nadie me ha amenazado, como lo han dicho en muchos comentarios. Segundo, gracias a ellos, en este momento ustedes tienen la entrevista y están viendo a Jaime Maussan dándonos pormenores sobre este caso tan importante. Tercero, esta empresa está dada a colaborar con la investigación del mismo caso y avanzar en esto para que, digamos, paren las cuestiones que me han dicho, en donde hay supuestas amenazas, que a mí me pagaron o algo así, pues aquí lo están viendo, que es totalmente falso. Ahora, don Jaime, usted me confirma con lo que me decía ahorita que la esfera ya está en México.
Correcto.
Listo. Estando en México, usted ha recibido, porque esa es una de las preguntas que se hace mucha gente también, algún tipo de presión, oferta o algo así por ella.
No, yo ya estoy más allá del bien y del mal. Yo ya he realizado muchas investigaciones y creo que la historia me ha dado la razón, me la está dando ahora con los seres tridáctilos de Nazca, que son auténticos. Lo acaba de reconocer el gobierno peruano, acaban de entregar las evidencias realizadas, las tomografías y radiografías en el Hospital E-Salud de Ica, donde claramente se ve que los cuerpos no fueron alterados. El Ministerio de Cultura está aceptando que no había realizado ninguna investigación al haber hecho la primera en septiembre del 2024 y sin embargo en 2017 y aún más en septiembre del 2023 aseguraron que estos cuerpos eran armados y que ellos ya los habían investigado, cuando nunca lo hicieron. Ese me parece a mí. Esta es la esfera de Buga. Es sólida, tiene lo que parece ser algún tipo de circuitos, tiene algún tipo de nomenclatura, de letras, de símbolos, tiene estas medias lunas muy porosas que parecen ser una especie de cavernas hacia su interior. Es absolutamente sólida. En el costado tiene lo que parece ser un cinturón. Pues algo que nunca imaginamos de estas esferas. Realmente se trata de un verdadero hallazgo, de un hallazgo extraordinario que tiene que ser investigado. Se trata de un chip cuántico. Esta esfera levita, es evidente que levita. ¿Cómo lo hace? Pues realmente no lo sé. Una investigación que solo se acaba de iniciar. Soy Jaime Maussan y esto es Interestelar. Hasta la próxima. Esta esfera se habría acercado tanto, pero nadie esperaba lo que al final del video ocurrió. Sin duda, se ha considerado que son algunas de las imágenes más nítidas jamás registradas de una esfera, más cercanas, más claras. Y entonces lo imprevisto ocurrió. La esfera desciende, no cae, y entonces el testigo se acerca hasta el lugar. Él ha querido mantener su identidad en el anonimato. No desea que se conozca por razones de seguridad quién es. Él se acerca hasta la esfera para hacer algo que nadie esperaba. Tomó a esta esfera con los riesgos que esto implicaba con sus manos. Esto
con cuidado.
nunca había sucedido antes.
Cuidado. ¿Pesa mucho? The video you just reviewed covers a small sphere being dropped off in Buga, Colombia from a larger one. Jamie Maussan in the video you've just reviewed on the sphere just so happens to also be the Mexican journalist who you've seen on the talk show with Dr. Reed, covering the Link artifact Reed presented. I, like many of you, thought the original Bugasphere video may have been AI created, but then the next video you're about to see was presented explaining on May 1st, 2025, the same sphere was now being X-rayed and analyzed by a specialist, Jose Velasquez. And while of course this footage doesn't guarantee that the object is real, the deeper this story goes with involving more people proves this is either one hell of a lie, or this object may present one of the best pieces of evidence as we've seen recently.
El jueves 1 de mayo del 2025, el señor José Luis Velázquez, especialista en rayos X, realizó una serie de sorprendentes pruebas a la esfera Buga, la cual cayó a tierra después de recibir una descarga de 10.000 voltios. Las imágenes obtenidas arrojaron resultados sorprendentes. En el interior, se puede observar en el contorno en tonalidad blanca una densa capa que la rodea, lo que es indicativo de que es muy gruesa. En tonos más grises, con menor densidad, se aprecia otro material menos denso que confirmaría que la esfera no es hueca y explicaría su inusual peso, que se ha logrado documentar de manera inexplicable, es variable. Asimismo, se detectaron una serie de 16 puntos que rodean al núcleo. Esto se trataría de microesferas. Al mismo tiempo, se observó un elemento de tonalidad oscura que se distribuye en el interior de la esfera de Buga, que revela que este material sería el menos denso, quizá poroso.
La radiología es una herramienta no invasiva, como pudiste ver, solamente atravesó la pieza. Nos habla de dos densidades diferentes, tanto en una imagen positiva como en una imagen... Esta es positiva, la otra es negativa, que denota una densidad de materiales diferentes, que sugiere que la pieza es una esfera externa más una parte interna. Aquí incluso si me acerco a la parte de este lado, hay otra densidad, ¿sí ven?
Sí.
Ahí se ve, la externa es una, luego hay otra capa más delgada, luego entramos a otra, luego entramos a otra. Hay como tres capas de diferente densidad.
También destaca la zona ecuatorial de la esfera, donde se contabilizaron 32 puntos distribuidos alrededor de la circunferencia. Asimismo, las observaciones en rayos X presentan que la distribución de los elementos es homogénea y que por su densidad pueden tratarse de metales. El investigador Nacho Rojo sugiere que, por su composición, esta esfera pudo haber sido ensamblada precisamente para albergar en su interior esta clase de materiales. Se ha descartado toda posibilidad de que se trate de un objeto ornamental. De hecho, fue registrada desplazándose en el cielo sin elementos visibles que nos permitan entender cómo puede desplazarse en el aire. Asimismo, el investigador español señaló que no encontró en las imágenes evidencias de fragmentación o desprendimientos, lo que significa que la esfera de Buga se mantiene íntegra. Se apreciaron también los puntos que penetran la estructura de esta esfera en el área perimetral.
Concluyendo, doctor.
Es una pieza muy rara, diferente a lo que yo he radiografiado de diferentes cosas que
¿Nunca había visto algo así?
Nunca había visto una pieza así. Te agradezco que me hayas invitado a radiografiarla, porque es una pieza única, con características muy sui generis. Pero justo ahí nos enfocamos y ahí no se ve que esto tenga soldaduras o uniones.
O sea, no hay soldaduras, no hay unión.
A lo que yo he visto, mira, he tenido la oportunidad de radiografiar muchas cosas. piezas de roca petrificadas, he trabajado para paleontólogos, para el INA, en esculturas, en relicarios, en cristos de caña, en obras de arte de madera, en obras en piedra, en levantamientos de antropólogos, y en cosas de metal también he podido radiografiar. Esto se ve muy nítido, y sí he visto soldadura, y no hay evidencia de que haya aquí una unión o que esto esté soldado o unido.
En estos análisis preliminares, las observaciones de analistas e investigadores coinciden en señalar que su composición es compleja, que tiene un origen artificial, que no tiene evidencias de soldaduras y que se trata de una estructura interna integrada por elementos de alta densidad. Asimismo, coincidieron en apuntar que es necesario profundizar más en diferentes análisis y pruebas para establecer su origen y el cual podría provenir de las estrellas.
¿Usted lo escuchó? El experto está confundido.
One more thing to consider, as many of you like myself are staying on top of the UAP phenomenon in the news. We keep seeing so-called whistleblowers come forward, like in this news segment. But this journalist presenting his whistleblower just happens to miss the story on a sphere falling out of the sky in Colombia that's posted all over social media. How is that even possible? Because logically, if it's a fake, then it would make sense to present the breaking story to disclose it is, so the public knows the truth that the story has been researched. This isn't at all what we see being done, and are simply being presented more of these government employees coming forward explaining they see orbs and UFOs. Maybe it's just a coincidence.
I'd like to end up by talking to you a little bit about the extraterrestrial artifact. The link is Dr. Reed called it. I'll tell you the scientific side, and then I will tell you my experience when he used it. Most of you probably have already seen it. If we could just have a picture of what it looks like would be fine. The artifact measures 4 inches long by 3.5 inches wide and is 3/16 of an inch thick. It weighs 170.30 grams. It's found, the metallurgical analysis revealed that it was found to be a composite material made up of silicon polymers, beryllium, aluminum, manganese, copper, zinc, bismuth, and gold. Through clothing or the skin suit of the alien and interacting with nerve bundles. So it seems that it's some type of device that interacts with nerves, the nervous system. These needles are are different in length, and at the base of each pin is an emerald crystal sphere. I really don't know what the purpose of that is at this time. However, and there are also unusual symbols that are found on the outside of the bracelet. These aren't just symbols, but they seem to be some sort of control buttons or control mechanisms, as you see over there. I've tried to find out what they mean. I've looked through the literature. They seem to me to be similar to the struck debris that was shown in the Roswell crash, the symbols that are on the Kecksburg crash in 1965 in Pennsylvania on the acorn-shaped object. They also seem to have some resemblance to Egyptian hieroglyphic type writings. I'm not really sure. If anybody can help us with that, that's one of the lines of investigation we like to keep open. There is a report that I don't want to go into now because it's very long, but when we were in Mexico City, Jaime Maussan was good enough to introduce us to a scientist, an engineer, who has an affiliation with the Ames Institute of NASA. He examined the bracelet, and what he found was emerging nanotechnology, that it is very similar and has carbon nanotubes running through it, and that NASA is now considering, and if you've read Scientific American, the latest issue talks nothing but nanotechnology and its future applications. We believe that this is what that device is, some sort of nanotechnology bioelectric device. But let me tell you and end with the experience that I had that's probably the most profound thing that's happened throughout all of this. Jonathan called me up, asked me to meet him 12 hours away from my home. He had something he wanted me to do, some aspect of the case he wanted me to investigate. I agreed without thinking about it, took the trip, and met him. We went to a hotel where we were joined by two other gentlemen who looked like businessmen dressed in suits, Caucasian, perhaps in their 40s, like anyone else. We all sat at a table. These gentlemen said to Jonathan, "Are you sure you want to do this?" He said, "Yes." With that, one of the gentlemen pulled out a notepad and a pen. The other gentleman pulled out of his coat something that was wrapped in this blue foam rubber type material. He handed it to Jonathan, and Jonathan said, "No matter what happens, nobody's allowed to leave the room." I agreed. With that, he unwrapped the bracelet. He put it on his arm. He pushed it down, and I could see him wince and grimace in pain from the needles. Then I saw that the bracelet went from its silver form to where it frosted up like a cold mug you cut out of the freezer. Then he pushed a couple of the buttons, and he began to vibrate uncontrollably, almost like a paint shaker. It was almost hard to see him. And then all of a sudden, like that, he disappeared from the room, from the chair sitting next to me. I waved my hand across the chair thinking, geez, maybe this is a trick of light and shadow, some sort of magic trick. But he wasn't in the room, and I was speechless. The gentlemen with me were speechless. This lasted for perhaps 10, 15 seconds while he was gone. But you know how when you're involved in a situation, you never really have a good judge of time. It seems to slow down a little bit. But it seemed to me to be about 10 or 15 seconds. Then with that, he slowly came and boom, there he was in the chair again. I touched him. It was his physical body, his physical form. But yet, he was transfixed, looking in the corner of the room. I watched him. He looked like he was in conversation with somebody. He looked like he was talking with something. And then I saw this small light in the corner of the room begin to grow and get bigger and bigger and bigger till it appeared to be a huge human form, and it glistened and it glowed, and it was shimmering like gold, but I couldn't see any facial features or arms or legs. It looked like it was encased of a robe of gold, and it floated across the room, and Jonathan kept looking at it, and it almost looked like he was in communication with it. And in my own mind, I'm looking at it, and I'm asking myself questions, and I find myself receiving the answers to these questions. It seemed to be some sort of telepathic communication that was happening here. But in addition to the communicative aspect of it, there was an emotional aspect of it. It made me feel warm and fuzzy. It was a good feeling. It was almost angelic. I would say godlike, but I'm a good Catholic boy, and I don't want to raise it to that level. Maybe godlike with a small g, perhaps. But it certainly wasn't anything like I've ever experienced before. And it's changed my life since then.
It's really bittersweet to come back into this area. You know, it was my home. This is where I worked. Where I ate and met my friends.
that she was there, the light color of her fur, and was kind of, barking and squealing and screaming. And I just ran down through here. And that's right beyond this tree, beyond this foliage. That's where it all took place.
This first tree right here.
Right beyond this evergreen tree and these leaves. Right there, right in that open space, just beyond this tree. That's where I saw this thing killing my dog. Everybody talks about stands of trees where I crawled up on, shot this way, where the obelisk was here. This is the exact place where it all took place. This is the place where the obelisk was, right here, where I broke through the brush and fell against it right here. Because it was high, and there was a little valley, there's a little rut there that I didn't see because of the underbrush, and I just kind of came crashing right through there against it. It was right here. It was sitting right here. It was this high off the ground. It wasn't touching the ground. It wasn't hovering. It was just as if it was anchored to the air. Even 13 years later, it still feels weird to be here. It still feels sad and uncomfortable. Because my dog died. Because I was so sick. Nothing made sense. I mean, the whole room or the area, but it's just you have this sense of this smell. And then usually within about 20 or 30 seconds, he just appears in like the corner of the room or the right next to you or wherever you happen to be. Well, this has occurred over the last 13 years more than 100 times. And yes, it has occurred with many other people. I mean, there was as many as, I think there was like 400 plus people at one time in a conference I was doing. So it's not just me that's seeing this. It's totally a physical thing. It's not it's not kind of a wispy cloud kind of thing. It's there. He's there with you, just like you're standing next to another person. It's to see or to semi-experience. And through that information, we're trying to learn more. We're trying to put some kind of logical explanation of why all this is happening. But there is a lot of it we can't add up. We don't have all of the input to give a full explanation. I mean, I think human beings, search for a logical pattern in everything. But I think some of this is beyond our comprehension, even though we continue to search for this logical pattern, the why, when, how, where, and who. But in reality, some of the who is just us and them. And that there's a bigger than just a symbiotic relationship. It's almost like we are part of the same, but in just a different dimension, just in a different reality, but yet we're still linked, and there's still a great importance to them about us. Almost as if
we are part of them. And like I said, extrapolating this information from years and thousands of people who have had contact, we're trying to weigh all this information out, and it's incomplete. I mean, I wish it was more complete. But besides, trying to gather the importance of this, you're always also battling the disinformation and the assassination attempts on your character and all those around you and your family. And it's a war. It's a war that I've had to.
Dr. Jonathan Reed is still alive and has recently done a podcast within the last few months on YouTube. His story is extraordinary, to say the very least, and the amount of people and research involved in his case is what makes it difficult to call a hoax. I want to leave you now with one of, if not the most profound piece of evidence of his claims. Dan McAvoy spoke of Dr. Reed using the Link artifact while in a hotel room with himself and other individuals. He explained he vanished from his chair and returned. Well, Dr. Reed also went on another Mexican talk show and used the Link artifact live in front of the studio audience of this show. The most interesting piece of this puzzle I found is when you perform a Google search for him doing this live on air, you'll certainly find the clip you're about to see, but nothing about how it was fake or explaining how this was accomplished almost 20 years ago.
In 2001, I was invited by Jaime Maussan to come to Mexico and tell my story to the people of Mexico, and consequently to the world. Between the people of Mexico, Jaime Maussan, and Art Bell, I was able to tell my story to millions and millions of people who have been supportive over the years and have given me the strength to continue. Back then, I had hoped to be able to demonstrate the Link bracelet or artifact in Mexico, but consequently, due to security issues, it was impossible at the time. And now that we live in a time of war and terrorism around the world, it's impossible to transport the Link device anywhere across anyone's borders. So, as you have invited me here, I will take this opportunity to dedicate the possibility of using the artifact in public on live television in your live program today. And hopefully we can see if it will in fact function, because sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's a matter of them not allowing it to happen. It's a two-phase operation. It's not just up to me. It's up to them. They are the owners. They are the ones that decide if in fact it is going to function. I'd just like to say thank you to all of the people of Mexico and to all of the people all around the world who have done so much to help me personally and all of the other people who have had contact around the world. There are millions and millions of people who have supported me and thousands of other people who have had contact like myself that continues to this very day. Act, or bracelet, as many people refer to it, is something that I found in the forest next to the body when I found the Extraterrestrial 13 years ago. It's a small silver device that is worn on the wrist and is a factor of communication and teleportation between the wearer and his superiors. I have learned that I have been given the responsibility opportunity to care for this device. It is something that is very sacred, and it is one of several that has been held in safekeeping around the world for over 60 years. I have talked with many of the other people who have found these devices, and now we know and are learning what the responsibility and what some of the functions are of these devices. Truly, truly, a technology that is so far advanced from anything that humans have yet to even scratch the surface of. This is what so many people have tried to say doesn't exist, or simply is a figment of someone's imagination. It has symbols across the front of it. This is what I found in the forest in 1996 when I first encountered the creature or the alien. I believe that it's some kind of bioelectric interface between the wearer of this device and the owners of it, that they actually activated. It has 3 needles on the inside that actually penetrate your arm, the wearer of this, that I think creates a interface, biological interface with the device and or the beings who use it. So my impression of it is that it's designed to keep control and communication between the extraterrestrial and their superiors. I believe it fits on your arm, the wearer's arm, like this. If you push down, the needles penetrate your skin, tissue, and into the nerves of your arm. There is some pain to it, but it quickly goes away. It becomes kind of a cold, almost a frozen type feeling. Very quickly, that pain subsides. But if it functions, which sometimes it doesn't, it starts a throbbing inside your chest, literally a pulsation inside your chest that starts from the center and emanates to your extremities and becomes harder and harder. And then when that happens, then it starts to be activated by, there, now I can feel it. I can feel it in my chest. It's painful, but if I hold my chest, it has a tendency to be less painful. And then they make the decision